it is September 30th, and yesterday I went to the Asbury Park Book Co-op used book sale. This is a book sale that they do twice a year, and it is a time when all their used books are $5. Usually they range anywhere from $1 to $20, so this is a good deal for non-members, but for members, of which I am one, it is an excellent deal because all books are just $1. So even the books that they would have labeled $20 are down to $1. It's very exciting. I just became a member in April during the first sale that they had this year because of that fact, actually. I had always thought about becoming a member, but because I knew I couldn't volunteer and because I knew I wouldn't be buying new books, I wasn't sure if it was worth it for me on that end, but it is. It's $50 a year. It's not very much. It's supporting the book co-op, which I really appreciate being there. It's a great place that if I ever did need to buy a new book, I could. Also, it's just like a local establishment that I want to make sure sticks around, and that's like a big reason that I do a lot of things that involve shopping, at least. I did go to the book sale and I did get 34 books and I spent $34. Since I am on a book acquiring ban, a book buying ban, how could I have possibly done this, you ask? Well, my book buying ban does have some caveats and some exceptions, and some of the exceptions are that I get to go to certain book sales throughout the year, and this is one of them. If you've been watching along, it's only been about 2 weeks since my last check-in and since my last book sale, and actually I didn't know about the Asbury Park book sale when I first started this plan, and I didn't incorporate it initially, but because I love this sale, I definitely want to make sure that I go, and I definitely want to make sure that I support them, and they have a pretty good selection of curated used books, which I appreciate. As far as my ban's going, it's only been 2 weeks since I last checked in with you. I did get 2 books in the intervening time. One of them I did do a corresponding unhaul for, and one of them I just kept. The way my book buying ban works is that I am not supposed to be buying any books. My TBR is very, very large. I will leave the video listed down below where I count my entire TBR, and I will also leave the book buying ban check-in videos as well. The way that it works is that I'm not supposed to be buying any books, and I'm not supposed to be acquiring any books, because the majority of the books that I get are actually usually free from little free libraries, but I have pared it down to only getting, only doing book sales and checking little free libraries, hopefully not taking anything, but if I do happen to acquire a book, I have to make a corresponding unhaul to go with that haul from my TBR. So I have been finding ways to go through my books, to assess them, see if I can get rid of some of the books that I have unread, or doing things like try chapters so that I can find some books that maybe I'm not planning on reading, and to use those to unhaul when I find a book that I want to bring in. So rule number 1 is I'm not supposed to be buying or acquiring any books, but the caveat to that is if I haul a book, I have to unhaul a book. The next caveat that I have is that I am allowed to go to certain book sales throughout the year. So I started my book buying ban back in August, and I didn't go to any book sales in August. The first book sale that I went to was in September, and then I had until the beginning of October before there was another book sale, and then I had till the end of October before there was another book sale, and now I don't have another book sale on the horizon until December. So from this week until the middle, I think, of December, I'm hoping to not acquire any books at all. That being said, I have also made a rule for myself that along with if I haul a book and I unhaul a book, I can, if I feel like it's okay, get one free book a week. So if I find a book that I really want, I can take it and not do a corresponding unhaul. I try to always do the corresponding unhaul, but then every once in a while, I won't have a book ready, or, it's a really short book that I picked up, or it's a book that I picked up that I want to just read right away, so I don't do a corresponding unhaul. So basically, I can get one free book a week. Anything else, I have to unhaul a book for every book that I haul, but I get certain times of the year when there are book sales to go hog wild. I don't know if any of that made any sense. I don't have a lot of other thoughts. So far, this is working well. Is it making a difference? I think that it is. I think that it's making me look at the books that I have more frequently. I feel like I've been going through them more frequently in order to find books that I could try a chapter or books that I could unhaul. I think that it is making me be much more selective about what books I take, either from little free libraries or even when I'm buying things at a book sale. I'm not perfect at this yet. I still have grabbed some things, especially in the first two book sales since starting this, that I might even just unhaul again because they might not be books for me. But I think at this last book sale, I felt way better about only getting books that I really wanted on my TR, and a lot more of the books that I got were on my want to read list. My want to read list on Goodreads is a list of books that I've heard of, that I'm really interested in, that I want to find eventually, and when I find them, I take them off my want to read list because then they're on my TBR. I think about 10 of the books that I bought at this book sale were on my want to read list. So they had already been on my radar. They were something that I wanted to read. They were intriguing to me. I had heard other people talk about them, some more than others. Like some I was really excited to get, and some were like, oh, I've heard of this. It's interesting. I want to read it. I think that that means that I'm like picking up books that I really want. And there were even books at the book sale that, although they were on my want to read list, and although I do eventually want to read them, they didn't feel like priorities, and they felt like something that would come up again, so I let them pass. I know I talked about in another check-in how I feel a little bit restricted, and a caveat that I didn't mention earlier was that within the week of the book sale, I'm also allowed to go and get books from other places. So if I want to go thrifting and I see books there, that's fine. Or if I happen to go to little free libraries and I see books there, that's fine. And they count towards that book sale, essentially. They don't count for unhauling books off my shelf. And I feel like this week I haven't really had the urge to go out and do that. The first couple of sales, I felt like I better go to the thrift store so that if I find a book, I can add it in. This time, I really don't feel like that. I was also needing to go to the thrift stores because I needed to buy pants for my winter capsule wardrobe. So like there was a reason for me to go to the thrift stores as well as getting books. And then if I found books, I could take them without feeling bad. And this time I don't really feel like that. So I'm kind of looking forward to seeing the month ahead to see how I do about not acquiring books in that time, and to see how I feel if my little like caveats and addendums work out for me, or if I maybe don't even need them because I'm not picking up books. I'm also really excited about a lot of the books that I've gotten recently and that I've rediscovered from going through all my TBR and all my shelves. So that could be why too. Like the books that were older like feel new again. So I definitely don't feel the urge to get a lot of books. That is the check-in for my book buying ban, my book acquiring ban. And let's move on to the haul from the Asbury Park Book Co-op. So the first book that I got is not going on my TBR. It is Geology, and it is like a little vintage geology guide. I love collecting these. We have a lot of them about like birds and animals, like things for the shore a lot of times, and I just collect them because they're really cool. I mean, we definitely use the bird guides, butterfly guides, turtle guides, all those kind of things. The geology one, I don't know if we'll use it quite as much, but it was a cute vintage edition. I wanted to get it. So this one does not go on my TBR, but I do catalog every single book that comes into the house on my RAB spreadsheet. So it does count towards that, and I do like to, you know, keep track of it. Another book that's not going on my TBR is H.P. Lovecraft and Others, Tales of the Cthulhu Mythos Volume 2. This is a really cool, gorgeous cover, vintage sci-fi collection of short stories. There's one H.P. Lovecraft in here and then a bunch of other stories, and my husband and I wanted to get this one just because it's something that we're super interested in. But I've just recently taken all the sci-fi short story collections like this off of my TBR, so I'm not going to put this on my TBR. I'm going to count this towards like a vintage collection. I got The Tale of an Unknown Island by Jose Saramago. I know of Jose Saramago because I think he wrote Blindness, which I do have, which is like a dystopian sci-fi, but this was such a cute little edition, short story novella, and it had some really cool illustrations, and it's translated. I picked up a lot of translated books this trip because my plan for next year is to read at least 25% of works in translation for the year, which is kind of a big goal, but I'm hoping it'll work. So I've been collecting translated works when I see them to both bolster my collection, and also obviously because I'm interested in them and I want to read them. Next we have Goddess of Filth by V. Castro. V. Castro is a Latina horror author who I've been wanting to read. Goddess of Filth sounded really interesting. I really like this cover. This was on my want to read list. Also on my want to read list was Cain's Jawbone. This is a new edition, but this is an older book. I think it was published maybe in like the 80s. Oh no, it was first published in 1934. So, okay, that's earlier than I thought it was. And this is like a mystery, but it's also like a literary puzzle. I think it's almost like a choose your own adventure type thing where you have to like skip ahead to certain things once you figure stuff out. This was on my want to read list, but like I don't know if I actually want to read this, but I definitely wanted to take a look at it and give it a try. I got a little book of Japanese haikus. It's really beautiful and it's just a bunch of haiku poetry. I got Knots by Gunhild Biiiiiggg, who is a Norwegian author, and I've never heard of this author before, but this book of short stories seemed like maybe a good place to start, and again, it is a translated work. I got The Endless Summer by Madame Nielsen, which is a Danish book. I don't think this one is translated, but it seemed really interesting. Next we have Amsterdam by Ian McEwan. This is a Booker winner, so I wanted to pick this one up. I knew this one was a Booker winner, and I knew it would be one that I'd probably be able to find. It's quite short, so I'm interested in reading that. I got Black Cake by Charmaine Wilkerson. This is, I think, came out in 2021 or 2022. I know Scott from Gunpowder Fiction and Plot really enjoyed this one. I think this is kind of a family drama. Next is Mort, a novel by Robert Rapino. This is a sci-fi book. I think it's put out by Tor, or it was at one point put out by Tor, and it is like a post-apocalyptic dystopian future, but like all to do with like animals somehow, where like certain animals have taken over, and Mort is a cat who is fighting for the side of right. I have no idea if that's accurate or not, but a cat main character, you know, it'll get me every time. I got Sunrise by Erika Kabayashi, and this one I got because it's a collection of short stories, but they're all interconnected short stories, which is one of my favorite things. I don't actually love short story collections generally. I find them very hard to get through, very hard to read, but I do love interconnected short stories, so I picked this one up. Now, I thought this was on my want to read, but it wasn't. Another book by this author was on my want to read, and they did have it there, but I didn't get it. There's a possibility that I'll go back tomorrow actually to the bookstore and see if some of the books that I saw there but didn't pick up are still there, and maybe pick up a few more. That's a possibility. I'm not convinced I'm actually going to do that, but we'll see. I got The Solitary Summer by Elizabeth von Arnim. This is the author of An Enchanted April, which is a book that I really want to read. I saw this one and it sounded interesting. A lot of the books that I got, like this one and Endless Summer, were kind of like young love, sexy, like women. So I don't really remember the details of all of them. I picked up a poetry collection by Nikki Giovanni, My House. I really enjoyed the first poetry collection by Nikki Giovanni I read, and I've been keeping my eye out for more of her work ever since. Another poetry collection I got was The Night We Stood Up for Our Rights, poems by Morty Glab. This is a American author who fought in the Korean War, and it seems like it's going to be an interesting collection. I got two NYRB books. This one was on my want to read list. It's A Time of Gifts by Patrick Leigh Fermer. This is the first in a trilogy of the author's account of a super long walk that he did. On the back it says up the Rhine, the Danube, on to Constantinople, passing through Munich, Vienna, Prague. It's a long trilogy of his account of this long walk, and I love books about walking. I love the idea of walking long distances and walking tours, and walking being like your occupation almost. So I was super happy to get this one. I also picked up the NYRB book Alien Hearts by Guy Du Maspan. I really thought I had another NYRB book by this author, but I do not. This one was another one of those books that was like coming of age, sexy, blah blah blah. I picked up another collection of short stories by Yasunari Kawabata, and it's called The Dancing Girl of Isu and Other Stories. I read another Kawabata novel earlier this year, and I have another one that I want to read before the end of the year. I really enjoy his writing. These were very short stories, so I was excited to get this one. I got Samskara, A Right for a Dead Man, was written by U.R. Anantha Murray and translated by A.K. Ramujan. I read a poetry collection by that translator, well, collected by that translator earlier this year, and I really enjoyed it, so I thought this one would be a good one to pick up. I definitely have heard of this author. It might be because he had some poems in that collection. Another book that's not going on my TBR is Living the Good Life by Scott and Helen Nearing. This is a book that I've actually already read, but this is such an amazing vintage copy. There are two books in the Good Life series, or duology, one where the Nearings move to Vermont and start communal living, and one where they take that knowledge and move to Maine. So I believe this is the first book where they're in Vermont, which is the book that I read. I also have the second book, but they're in like a modern bind-up, and they're not nearly as beautiful as this edition. I was super happy to find A Single Man by Christopher Isherwood. This is like a gay classic, and I've been wanting to read it. I did not know it was so short, though. It's so short. Is it a novella? 186 pages, so like a tiny bit longer than the novella cutoff, but I'm super excited to get to this one. On my want to read list was What Storm, What Thunder by Miriam J.A. Chansey. This is, I think, a coming of age story, family drama set in Haiti, and I think it has something to do with maybe the Haitian earthquake. Beautiful cover, and I'm excited to find out more. This was definitely a cover grab. It's E.M. Forrester by Lionel Triller, and I just got this because it was just such a freaking cute little biography. I just thought it was really adorable. It's called The Makers of Modern Literature series, and it's so tiny. I think it's probably going to be a little too academic and probably won't actually go on my TBR. It'll go in my vintage collection. I was super excited to find God Dies by the Nile by Nawal El Sadawi. I read a book by her earlier this year, and I really enjoyed it. She is an Egyptian author and women's rights activist who was writing in the, I think, 60s through like the 90s. I'm very excited to see another one of her works. I thought Woman at Point Zero was really interesting, but ostensibly it's like auto-fiction, so I would like to see what a more fictionalized novel is like from this author. I got The Water Statues by Flora Jaggi. This is translated from the Italian by Jeannie Alhadeff. I had this on my want to read list. It sounded really interesting. I think it was another one of those sexy women, you know, whatever. I don't know. Sounded cool. I got Silk by Alessandro Barco. I have a weird feeling I might have this in my basement box books, but this is another translated work, also translated from the Italian, and it is about a man who, when his family silk trade is failing, goes to Japan. I picked up a collection of poems called Fish Carcass by V. Key Now. It says blending autobiographical truth with poetic invention. Great cover. Sounds cool. One of the best ever titles of a book by Elizabeth Smart is by Grand Central Station, I Sat Down and Wept. This is actually a collection with that book and another book in it, and I think it might also have commentary on the titular book as well. I don't know anything about this book except the title is amazing and I had to get it. On my want to read list was Mouth to Mouth by Antoine Wilson. This is a gorgeous cover. I see it all the time. I think this is about a man who rescues another man from drowning and then becomes obsessed with him. Burnham Woods by Eleanor Catton. This was not on the Booker list. Everybody was shocked, but it was on the Women's Prize list, and it did seem really interesting. Like Eleanor Catton's other work, this one is quite long, over 400 pages. I don't know when I would get to this one, but I am excited to be able to do so now that I have it. This is about environmentalists, and it's almost like a crime thriller, but not exactly. I got a couple of books that I'm super excited about, both in the Storytime Press collection. So cool, these books. These are two out of the collection that I was interested in, but wasn't like the ones that I really wanted. We have The Famous Musician by Cesar Aria and Spadework for a Palace by Laszlo Krasznahorkai. And then lastly, I got Skullwater by Heinz Insu Fenkel. This was on my want to read list, and this is such a stunning cover. It is so beautiful. And I believe this is about South Korea, possibly. I think that this is a South Korean author, but actually I'm not sure. He was born in South Korea to a German father and a Korean mother, so he is Korean German. Other than that, though, I don't really know what it's about. Partly a cover grab, but cover grab that I've been thinking about for a while. So those were the books that I got at the book sale. That is the update on my book buying, book acquiring ban. Let me know how you're doing with your book purchasing this year. Let me know if you've already started making plans for your book purchasing for next year. And thanks so much for joining me today. And I'll see you in the next one. Bye.